The proud people of the Ouchies Republic are about to do it again, taking the land that is rightfully theirs. And you know, the locals will know something's up when we start changing the flags. The ESE has busted onto the scene with an elite striker group, some striders, and a general purpose group that is suited for regular combat, while the UMFA has an elite set of heavy gears. Hey, that's the name of the game, isn't it? Having been caught slightly unaware, the ESE rallies forward into the small settlement out on the border of their new territory, while High Command has ordered them to see who is challenging their position. They're not particularly concerned about actually keeping the position, but on the UMFA side, they need to scan the shack out there to make sure that it is in good condition and hasn't been pilfered, and they need to exit the commander and his strike squad off the board. They need to go back to their own positions behind the ESE lines. The Northerners managed to infiltrate their grizzly and a couple hunters up right into the wood line, right next to the sleeping or at least caught unaware ESE troops. It appears early on that Deffler's objective is to get those grizzlies out there and start pummeling the gears of the ESE and try to open them up, trying to distract them so that he can move his striker gears and the commander up north through the town and exit off the board. I, on the other hand, have no intention of letting them get by. I just have to scan them, and I gotta remember that. So I start opening up all my guns at them, because hey, why not? As the Naga strides forward into the woods and starts opening up on all the hunter gears that decided to make themselves available on the outside so they might be able to range in shots or at least call forward observe for the grizzlies sitting out in the woods. But nonetheless, the hunters do successfully forward observe, and they manage to get the guided mortar down, placing all kinds of damage around the Naga, but he's just tucked away just far enough. I at least was conscious enough to keep him far away from his little buddies, and the Naga only takes a point of damage by himself. Sagittaire begins opening up with its rockets at long range. It doesn't seem to do much. I didn't really consider that he's going to have to shoot out there. At least his rocket packs are a lot shorter range than you might imagine. You'd think it'd be an awesome artillery piece, but it's not really. It's like a light mortar system on really big legs. So I start hunkering down the rest of the gears. I move them up into the entrenchment or into the settlement, and I start letting them hull down on the sides. I need to get those green guys to hull down just in case they ever really hose up their dice roll. They can at least rely on getting a flat form on. The Naga keeps pressing itself into the woods, moving up to the tree line, opening up his AGM and ATM at all the available targets that are out there, and manages to put quite a bit of damage on those hunters that are out there, but I just can't quite kill them. He's making his defense rolls just well enough that I can't overkill it right out, or at least put more than enough, put them into critical. I mean, a lot of them are becoming light or heavy damage. They're just behind the trees. And for those of you wondering what that droning sound in the background is, that is my air conditioner for my house. I happen to live in Memphis. It's very hot and humid out here. I can't really turn it off. Sometimes I turn it off with these Batreps, but not this time. I mean, I never really choose between the Batrep and letting my wife and son swelter in the heat, so I think I'm making a good call there. Grizzlies continue pummeling the Naga with all kinds of guided mortar fire as all his little buddies, all my gears on the ESE side have started ducking around and around in the corners trying to hide and stay out of the way of the Grizzlies, but the Grizzlies just can't quite put it down. It's just dinging off of that fantastic southern piece of equipment. And the UMFA striker gears begin hunkering down along the hedge wall, doing everything that they can to get as much cover before they get closer to the settlement. And I'm not going to allow him to get away with that. Not at all. The IM actually has a bead on him from one of the Black Mambas. He opens up with his heavy grenade launcher. My brother didn't quite realize that, and I managed to pummel his elite gears at range, damaging the leader and the guy right behind him, dealing them both in the critical. You know, that HGA is real expensive to put out there, and I'm really, really glad I did, and I'm glad he didn't quite notice that I had the shot. And things are starting to look bad for the UMFA. They don't have a whole lot to show for it, but they're pushing forward. A lot of their forces are damaged, and they haven't quite made any kind of headway into any of the objectives that they need to. They do, however, manage to pop off a shot against one of the Black Mambas, and he fumbles his roll, damaging him, but I managed to pull him behind the building up there. And in return, I sent the Naga up there. I want to get up there and say hello. Hello. I want to see those Grizzlies to get them to come out and play, because I have all kinds of nice surprises back here. And in bidding hello, knock knock, who's there? It's a fumbled roll against an ATM, and one Hunter Gear absolutely buys it as he takes a couple high explosive rounds right into his face. And here you can see the perspective from the southern side of the board, the best side of the board, where everyone wants to come and get their papers, please. Because you know we're all about order over here. Even as the Naga downs another Hunter Gear, another one manages to make the observation roll, guides more guided mortars in, and the Naga botches it. I throw 2 command rolls at it to try to get back up, and it manages to lose it. The whole machine was taken to nothing in one guided mortar roll. And as a damaged Hunter Gear begins moving forward out of the woodline with his bomb terrier, I decide to go ahead and start moving the other gears around him, because just the moment that he gets out there, when my turn comes around, we're going to put him down like the sick dog that it is. In the interim, the Black Mamba leader begins moving along the right side of the board with one of his little buddies. We're going to try to open up an extra flank, so we're going to flush out those striker gears, while the other Black Mamba with the heavy grenade launcher keeps pummeling them downrange, kills one and kills another one, leaving them down at half strength. I've moved the Gatling laser around the corner, and we're going to keep pummeling them at range to do as much damage as we can. He, however, gets the brunt of it as the return fire manages to actually put down the poor Gatling laser. He gets one shot off before he gets pummeled by 3 other gears in reaction fire. With the Southern Naga down and its principal threat largely averted, the Grizzly moves one of its fire orders. It moves it over into the area in the center of the town and starts pummeling my defensive positions, actually, again, botching another defense roll and killing another Hunter Gear. Turn 4 has come around, and we're both losing most of our command points. Our commanders are mostly exasperated, as we have spent a lot of them on repeating orders and re-rolling defense rolls, mostly in vain. And in my case, I ended up spending a lot of my defense rolls, or at least a lot of my command points, early on in the turn, when there's other points when I should have been able to re-roll, or I could have, and I lost the opportunity. And it ended up being disastrous. You really got to pace yourself out on those command points. The damaged Hunter gimps his way out forward, trying to get his bomb terrier into range of something important, and I put it down with a vengeance. The Jaeger manages to take one bead on him just a moment as he exits the woods and hits him repeatedly, putting him down. Not a significant feat, considering he was crippled. Sagittaire moves out to get a direct bead on those Kodiaks, trying to do as much damage as they can, but that rocket pack really isn't all that impressive, especially against something as girthy as the Kodiak. I could be just throwing high explosive rain at them, and they just kind of shrug it off. It doesn't matter how many rounds I'm throwing at them, it's just not enough to give them any kind of pause for concern. But hopefully it can be reciprocated. The Sagittaire's a pretty well-armored walker. UMFA leader begins moving up into the gap into the hedgerow and starts taking a look at his opportunities down there. We don't quite have a shot at each other yet, or at least it's not one that we want to take. Nonetheless, the grenade launcher Mamba gets forward observed, and the Grizzlies make a mess of it at range, dropping rounds around him, putting them into light damage. Striker group at range begins pummeling the southern units that are still in the settlement, and they managed to put down another gear. I was going to announce reaction fire on it, but he died before he got the opportunity. And just as soon as it got cleared, the Northerners begin moving their gears across the open hedgerow. And just as they do, the leader of the Southern ESE starts swinging around with his bodyguard. We're going to take on those UMFA knuckleheads just as soon as we can and hopefully tie them up into two separate units. The ESE really needs to separate out the fire groups. We can't let them focus fire on the western end of the Grizzlies. We need to keep them separate. And as they do, the Southerners start chucking grenades at range, trying to do as much damage as they pop a few rounds again at range from some of the hunters and from within the settlement. And they can't quite put it down. They do no damage. And as a result, the game is now deadlocked. It could go either way. The Southerners have lost quite a bit of gears in the last 2 turns, and the game could go either way. We are a breath away from losing the match. The ESE begins shoring up their defenses, moving up as much as they can to the west side of the board, while the Sagittaire sits there trying to do its best to act like a tank. It's not, but it looks impressive with its armor value. And seizing the opportunity, the Southerners swing their gears in. We're going into close combat with the Northerners, and we're going to do it as best as we can. We don't quite have assault troops, but that's not ever stopped me before. And as they do, they start getting into fisticuffs. He pops off a couple rounds at me. We declare that it's probably an attack of opportunity since he reaction fired at him, but he reaction fired him when I was already well within close combat range. So we start getting stuck in as the Northern Strike Gears, the Tigers, start moving into close range with the Black Mambas, and we start punching the mess out of each other, breaking out the Vibro Knives as he doesn't have any kind of close combat gear, and it starts getting really nasty. I don't intend to give him the opportunity to dictate the pace of the game, so I move the Sagittaire forward and I swing another Hunter gear into the melee, trying to get as close as we can so that I can have 3 to 1 and hopefully start stacking those crossfire and rear arc mods. I even push one of the Hunters up right next to the UMFA Army Commander, hoping to give him something to think about if he decides to cross around that hedgerow. But even though the Sagittaire might look impressive on paper, my brother did not see through it, and he moves the Grizzlies up forward and they roar, taking the Sagittaire down again, causing overkill. Again, this is just one of those cases where you need to be careful how you're pacing out your command points, because I just didn't have the command points for it. And the combat has reached endemic proportions. Everyone is close range. We lost all of our fire support platforms. The command points have been dwindled down to nothing, and those Grizzlies are making a mess of the field, standing triumphant. The UMFA commander sees an opportunity. He nudges forward, opens up with his AGM, and nails the heavy grenade launcher Black Mamba, leaving the ESE without its heavy hitter, and now we're moving down to small arms weapons. This one was particularly funny because he had forgot that he existed and could even make a reaction shot. He was going to swing around through the rubble of the Striders when I announced reaction fire, then thought better against it, and then he decided, you know what, I've got a better idea. We're just going to take the shot and move. The close combat in the hedgerow has gotten quite severe as one of the Black Mamas has gotten critically damaged in the exchange, and the other Southern Gears can't quite make it come home. The Northerners have acquitted themselves as being close combat proficient, as they don't even have proper gear to be able to hold them back, but they're holding back to the man while the Grizzlies stride out of the woods trying to clean up the southern end of the settlement. The tables have turned for the ESE as the whole village is about to be completely overrun if I can't bring some sort of heavy, overwhelming firepower to put those behemoth Grizzlies down. And I do what I can. I send the Hunter up. He's going to be a hero hunter as he goes into close combat with the Grizzly to at least lock him up and keep him from using those weapons at the brewing combat that is slowly going sour for the south on the northern end of the board. I deploy my reserve. I had a hunter sitting back just in case there was something going horribly wrong. He goes after the army commander. The army commander reaction fires his AGM, and cripples the hunter out in the open. The northern gears begin evacuating from the close combat in the northern end of the board. He pulls out, and the Tiger opens up with his Mac despite taking some damage doing so, and with no regard for his own teammates, do no damage to the brewing contest that's going on there. His other buddy pulls out, takes more damage in the opportunity fire, and hoses down the entire group, but doesn't manage to do any damage as well. But most importantly, he opens it up for the Grizzly sitting on the hill, dumps a couple guided mortar rounds in there, and causes quite a bit more damage, forcing the game even more in favor for the Northerners, as the Southern Army group is now holding on to life by a thread. They can still hold on to the game, but it's now a do-or-die affair. I still got to get aggressive. I've got to determine the pace of the game. I don't have any command points to really affect any kind of outcome, so I got to hope that everything works out the first time. So we start opening up with gunfire from the crippled mech out there to try to be able to do some damage, to get a little bit of crossfire information. Then I move out the leader into the center to get that crossfire mod. I do quite a bit of damage to the Tiger, but I don't put it down. In return, they open up everything at it. The Grizzly sees him, opens up his gun at long range, and teaches him the meaning of pain. The unit goes down. We're now without a leader, not that it really matters anymore. I start hunkering back as best I can because that guy just got exploded. I move the hunter on the south down. I'm going to try to take out their leader, move forward. He botches his roll. He gets shot at and return fire. The leader moves forward and pay no attention, Patriotismos. The battle went well. You don't need to see the rest of it. You don't need to see anything else. Everything was great. Seriously. We called it at that point because it was clear that I was about to get tabled. But when we looked at the points, I completely forgot exactly what I said at the beginning of this Batrep. I just have to recon these guys. And I did. I reconned them all, except for one unit. That Grizzly sitting on the hills. The only one that I didn't look at, and if I did, I would have had 4 victory points winning the game. Instead, I only scanned half of them, so I got 3. He lost too much of his units. Even assuming that he scanned the shack, he would have still lost the game. So it's actually a tie game. UMFA and the ESE fought to a draw. And that's been an Ouchies Batrep. Thanks for watching. Hey, I appreciate the feedback. I really like hearing whether or not you like something or whether or not there's something you'd like to see more of or less of. We got Drop Zone Commander in the future. We also got what's probably going to be Fleet Scale Battletech. And we also have the conclusion to the Shiloh campaign sooner or later. So let me know what you like, what you don't like, and if there's anything that I might be able to do to improve it. It always helps. Take care.